YouTube, what is going on? Welcome to the Lions Pulse. I am your host, Miko, and once again, we are here to talk Detroit Lions. I appreciate everybody taking the time to come hang out with me today. Please do what you do best. Jump into the comment section. Well, actually, before you jump into the comment section, before you jump into the chat, hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you're new. Obviously, you guys know the likes, the comments, the subscriptions, they help the channel out so much. And you guys have done such an amazing job so far of supporting the channel. I really, really do appreciate every last one of you. Um, but with that said, once you finish, hitting the like buttons, once you finish jumping in the chat, yeah, let me know who's all here so I can say what's up to you. Got my first one here. 1991, Max Dag saying, "What up, Miko? Max Dag, what's good with you, man? How was your weekend?" As everybody comes in, let me know how your weekend was, what you've been up to today. It's a Monday, but it's a really nice Monday. I just came from outside actually, grilling up some hot dogs for the family. So hope most of you got a good chance to just go out, enjoy the outside. We're finally getting into that time of season during Michigan where the weather's nice, sun's out. Last week it was gloomy and rainy. Today it's been really nice out. Casey, jump into the chat. What's good with you, Casey? Saying, "Hey, Miko, thanks for the stream and great Lions analysis." Appreciate you, Casey. Trying my best, trying to give you guys something that you guys enjoy. And I really do appreciate all the positive feedback. You guys have been awesome. My first 2 weeks of kind of just doing this solo. So yeah, we're here for week 3, episode 5 of the Lions Pulse. I'm super excited. I got a really good show for you guys lined up. We're going to be talking Lions OTAs, which kick off tomorrow. So I want to just run through again what we can kind of expect from OTAs. It's the first time we kind of get to see the vets and the rookies kind of get together. We get to see 7-on-7s, we get to see 11-on-11s, 9-on-7s, like all of that type of stuff kind of gets to take place over the next couple weeks. Obviously, there's no pads, there's no hitting, but we get a really good analysis of the this is like our first chance to kind of get an analysis and get a gauge of like what these guys are kind of looking like, who's in shape, who's kind of running with the ones, who's running with the twos. And it's going to be a really good time these first couple weeks. I'm really excited to kind of dive into the coverage and kind of get an idea of what's happening during OTAs. Max Stack saying, "Laugh out loud, not just hot dogs." Look, man, it was a rush. Me and the wife were trying to figure out what we were going to do for dinner. Actually, I grilled yesterday and I just did like the whole like hamburgers and hot dogs thing because again, it's summer and you kind of got to like ease your way into barbecuing. You can't just like jump out there with the ribs the first chance you get. So trust me, I'm gonna get my ribs out there going one of these days. It's a whole thing for me though. Like I gotta prep them, I gotta uh marinate them, do all of those types of things, smoke them, and then that if you smoke ribs, that takes a whole process. So I'm gonna get into it. It's just right now, first couple of days of like nice weather, it's hamburgers and hot dogs, and then we'll dive into the good stuff as the warm weather kind of trickles in. But yeah, speaking of things trickling in, as you guys come in, like again, make sure you guys hit that like button, share it with your friends if you know a couple people that may enjoy the channel as well. Like I said, all of that stuff really does help out the channel as I'm kind of starting to try to grow it into something that we can all enjoy. Again, me being able to talk Lions, you guys being able to hear, hopefully something that you find entertaining and enjoyable. And yeah, just continue to grow this Lions community from what it already is. All right. So with all that said, yes, Detroit Lions kick off OTAs tomorrow. I believe about 20 teams kick them off today. So there's already some teams that are going to get started. The Lions start this week. They'll be going from Tuesday to Thursday. Shout out to Pride of Detroit for writing an amazing article today, kind of outlining what OTAs are kind of going to be like these first couple weeks. So we only get like media coverage for one day for each of these couple weeks of OTAs. So there's not going to be a ton of coverage, but what we do get, trust me, the minute we get something, I'm going to be breaking it down. Also, shout out to Jeremy Rising from Pride of Detroit. I got to like iron this out specifically, but I will be hopefully getting him on the show first week of June, which what we were talking about will be like fresh off of an OTA day. So hopefully he'll probably even have some insight into how OTAs went that day. So we can probably ask him some good questions. And for those of you who obviously probably follow Pride of Detroit or who know Jeremy, awesome guy, always been really supportive of me and what I was able to do both with this channel and with the Questionable podcast back when I was doing that. Big T in the building saying, "What up, Miko? #1Pride. What's good with you, Big T?" How was your weekend, man? Again, everybody, how was your weekend? Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. The weather was pretty nice. So hopefully you guys got to go out and just kind of, enjoy things. And yeah, again, follow Big T's lead, hit that like button. I know there's only about 5 of you watching, so let's get those likes up. And again, if you're new, feel free to drop a sub or just hang out for a while. And once you figure out if this is the place that you enjoy, then you can go ahead and hit that sub button later. Um, but yeah, let's dive into the Lions OTAs. So with OTAs kicking off, there's going to be a lot of different things going on, and for me, I try to like keep my focus based on position groups, and so I'm going to give you guys the position groups that I'm going to be most focused on from like top to bottom. You guys might disagree, and I would love to again, let's have this conversation. If you guys disagree, if there's something that you're more focused on, let me know in the chat, and we can talk about it. But yeah, these are the position groups that I think that I want to be focused on as we start OTAs. And I'll kind of break down why as we kind of go through them. Number one for me are the wide receivers. Now I know some of you guys might find that kind of odd because again, the Lions offense was one of the best offenses in the league last year. So why would I be so focused on the wide receiver group, as soon as OTAs kick off? Well, for me, it's because this group we've talked about like how big of a change the secondary has had. Well, the wide receiver group is having a little bit of a shuffling as well, right? DJ Chark is gone. Obviously, Jameson Williams is still here, but he's going to be suffering or dealing with a suspension the first 6 games of the season. Quintez Cephas is no longer here. Stanley Berryhill, who obviously was further down the depth chart, but he's no longer here. You brought in Marvin Jones. You drafted Antoine Green. You've also re-signed a tryout guy in Drummond out of Eastern Michigan. So like there's a lot of like new pieces in this wide receiver room. And obviously we know like in some sense what the pecking order is for this group. It kind of goes Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, and then pretty much everybody else, right? Like Khalif Raymond is in the mix. Like I said, Jamo's going to be suffering a suspension, but I think even going into OTAs, it's going to be really interesting to see how much run does Jamo get because even though he's suspended for those first 6 games, he does get to still practice. He does still get to be involved in off-season programming, all the off-season workouts that they're going to be doing. So do they treat him as a starter and keep him as involved as possible? Or do they try to give these other guys run that like the guys that are actually going to be available for those first 6 weeks so that they can get the most out of, these workouts and these practices? Before I continue, shout out to Haters House 710 saying go Lions. Appreciate you, man. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've seen you in the chat, but if it is your first time here, welcome. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Casey saying I'm mostly focused on fringe players, regardless of position, who are on the bubble to see if they can make the team. Everyone loves an underdog or hard luck story. And those are like, I was actually going to get to that later in my list, Casey, but yes, that is definitely something that is on my list as well. Or as we kind of go through this conversation, there are those people that are like, okay, on the fringe, like as you're saying, like, they're not necessarily a surefire, they don't have a surefire spot on the team, but they could obviously make their way in. But again, starting off, it's wide receivers for me. And to that stand, it kind of same extent to what Casey's talking about. Like I said, Antoine Green is a 7th-round draft pick. They have a couple UDFAs that are playing the wide receiver spot. Specifically, I think his name is Keontae Thompson out of Virginia, who's kind of like this hybrid tight end, wide receiver, played quarterback, kind of like this Taysom Hill type of guy, but just with a bit more size. I'm super interested to see, like, again, how the Lions kind of envision him because they brought him as a UDFA. So do they strictly use him as a wide receiver? Do they try to use him as this quote unquote weapon and just kind of have him all over the place? Casey saying no Trinity Benson, LOL. Are we finally? Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if we were finally done with the Trinity Benson saga because it just feels like it's this revolving door of like Brad Holmes traded for him and he's obviously going to try to make that work, but it hasn't worked so far. But yeah, you have some of these UDFAs that I'm really interested to see. Like, again, does anybody kind of rise, from the ranks? Antoine Green, like I said, is one that I'm really kind of keeping my eye on because I did, if you guys haven't seen it, it's on the channel. I did his like pros and cons, and his skill set comps pretty similar to Marvin Jones. And so it would be nice to kind of hear coming out of OTAs that him and Marvin are kind of forming a relationship, or that he's like, um very much trying to learn from Marvin, because I think there's a lot that Marvin does as a wide receiver that Antoine Green could definitely replicate and try to add to his repertoire as a young receiver. So like I said, it's gonna be really interesting to see how that group meshes, to see how familiar and how much better the chemistry is between JMO and Goff. Because again, there were a couple miscues last season, and a lot of people attributed that to the fact that, like, hey, JMO had no OTAs, he had no training camp. Um, he's only had a couple practices to kind of get, in sync with Goff. So again, this is the start of OTAs. You have all this time to start to kind of build that chemistry. So that's one thing, and one of the reasons why I'm so kind of focused on this offensive in this wide receiver group. Because for me, as much as Dan wants to run the ball, the Lions were very effective passing the ball. Jared Goff was very good throwing the ball. Well, he has a couple new pieces here, and so we got to be able to get that right now, right? We got to be able to get the timing of these rights down. We got to be able to, him to be able to establish that trust with guys. Because again, we know someone like Marvin who's been here in the past. Marvin is a great deep threat, but he's also a great, contested catch kind of guy. And so him and Goff are going to have to build that level of trust where Goff feels comfortable taking those deep shots to Marvin, and trusting him to come down with them when there may be a guy draped over him like that. You start to build that trust in OTAs and being able to see what Marvin is able to do. And again, same with Antoine Green, who's able to do something very similar, building that trust with JMO so that he can kind of get that timing down off of JMO's releases, understand, like, again, just like how fast he is getting off the line. All of that's going to be really beneficial to not just Golf, but these wide receivers as well. Um, Next on my list is the opposite side of that, which is the defensive backs. And I think for some people, like, this is the number one for them. And I understand that. I completely understand why the DBs, the safeties, the corners, like, I understand why these would probably be top of the list for a lot of people, because it's a whole new group. A lot of these, you have whole new corners that are vying for starting spots. Obviously, you still have Jerry Jacobs. Will Harris is coming back if he is still in the mix. And obviously, you still have your safeties. But I mean, again, things are going to be kind of getting shuffled around. Cam Sutton's coming in, Emmanuel Mosley. We'll get like at least an idea of like how ready he is to start participating in these OTAs. I doubt it. I doubt that he's like that much ready to be able to get on the field, but obviously he'll be taking those mental reps. But it's great for Jerry Jacobs because he will, if Emmanuel Mosley isn't able to start, I fully expect Jerry Jacobs to have that spot opposite of Sutton, and that to be your CB1 and CB2 going through OTAs. But again, it'll be interesting to see the same thing with Tracy Walker. Is Tracy good enough to start? Obviously, he's been taking part in some of the off-season workouts. We've seen that in the photos that the Lions have been like kind of posting of just like the off-season workouts that they've been doing. But again, those workouts are kind of separate from like actual football. So is he good enough to do, to go out there and do 11 on 11 or do 7 on 7? That's going to be really important to see for Tracy. And if it's not Tracy, if Tracy's not quite there to be able to do those things, what do they do at the safety spot? Do they throw, CJ GJ back there? Do they throw Brian Branch back there? Again, a lot of moving pieces in the secondary. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. Again, getting the observation of, okay, like, what is the lineup? What's first team? What's second team? Who's playing nickel? Who's playing safety? Are guys rotating, right? Is Chauncey playing nickel one, in one package, but then playing safety in another? Like, how creative is Aaron Glenn kind of getting with this defense going into these OTAs? Big T saying, I want to see what our running backs do. Also saying I'm very interested in seeing what that one guy UDFA running back. Oh, you're talking about Mohammed Ibrahim out of Minnesota. Yeah, because there's been a lot of hype about him, and about a lot of people have been saying, like, if there's a UDFA to make this roster, it's going to be him. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see, again, is Jahmyr Gibbs able to practice? And if he is, like, where does he kind of fall? Obviously, a lot of people feel like there's some competition to be had for RB3 with the Lions roster this year. Casey saying, will Kirby get edged out by Branch? Will all the new CBs be healthy versus Kansas City? And again, those are things that I absolutely want to kind of see going into OTAs, right? I don't foresee Kirby getting edged out by Branch at all, simply because Kirby proved himself. Like, he came in, he filled in for Tracy, and he did it great. And even though he was technically the fill-in for Tracy, I think Tracy can absolutely play the Deshaun Elliott role if that's what they decide to do. I don't think like I don't think that like Tracy coming back means that Kirby has to now fight for a starting spot. I don't think they're going to just give that to Brian Branch either. I think if Brian Branch wants a spot, he's going to have to prove um, that he's better than Kirby, right? Or that he can, take a spot from CJ GJ. And it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb for him, but like I said, this defense has the potential to be very diverse and very multiple with so many guys in the secondary that can play literally outside, inside, safety, whatever, man, zone. There's so much flexibility with these guys that they have this year. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of like just again like how they kind of line up everything throughout OTAs. So number three, staying on the defensive side for me is the linebackers. Again, this is kind of something somewhat similar where you're adding a first round draft pick in Jack Campbell, and you've re-signed Alex Anzalone. So like on paper, this looks like you're starting tandem. Well, last year during OTAs, this is when we started to get a lot of the hype about, Malcolm Rodriguez and Malcolm really kind of like, making his presence felt. So in the same way that we talked about this during rookie minicamp, I think the same thing rings true here. Can Jack stand out amongst the veterans? Can he take command of that defense, or is he just going to default to Alex? Are the Lions going to allow Jack to take again command of the defense? Because again, they have so much trust in Alex to do it. But now that they have both guys there, again, doing 7-on-7s, doing 9-on-7s, 11-on-11s, all of that stuff, are they going to allow the young guy to again kind of like take his lumps and learn on the job of what it means to command a defense? Because ideally that's why you drafted him. You drafted him to play that middle linebacker spot, that green dot spot. You guys feel very confident about his ability to do that, as far as what he's able to do mentally, how he's able to read and process the game. And we've heard a lot of great things from Dan Campbell, Kelvin Shepard, and Brad Holmes about again just like how ready he looks from a physical standpoint. So in my mind, like you can't say all of that and then get into OTAs and then default to Alex Anzalone calling the plays. If you're going to kind of make this pivot, you've made this investment into Jack Campbell. I feel like Jack needs to be able to kind of be thrown in the fire a little bit to call the plays and to take charge as the starting linebacker, and then be able to get Alex used to playing that will spot, playing next to him. And I think this could be really beneficial for both guys because again, Jack may be doing his on the job training, but Alex can be like that supervisor that's there to kind of again course correct when necessary, right? Obviously, he's gonna have to learn some things on his own, but again, because you have another guy that knows the defense so well, because Alex has been here for so long, you kind of don't have to worry about possibly Jack making too many mistakes because Alex will be there to correct him. Um, and outside of the starting guys, what does that second unit look like, right? I feel like because that's when you start to get into the Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes group, and it's like who's playing if there's a second team for linebackers, who's the Mike and who's the Will in that situation? Because again, both guys, Derek and Malcolm, kind of like have that vibe that they could kind of be Wills, but I think they've always kind of wanted Derek Barnes to be a Mike. So it's like, does Derek Barnes kind of rise to the top and he's that leader of the second unit? Is it more of Malcolm because Malcolm played a lot more and he started? That's something that I'm really kind of interested to see with the linebackers as well. Real quick, Big T saying, I really wonder who's the two starters at linebacker. Yeah, and I kind of expect it to be Jack and Alex, in all honesty. I think if it's not Jack and Alex, I think something has gone seriously wrong. And I don't mean to like make that dramatic, but you've drafted Jack at the 18th overall pick, right? First middle linebacker taken off the board, and you've basically it's almost like taking a quarterback, right? Like in that sense where it's like, okay, well, this is supposed to be your leader of the defense. This is the guy that you're kind of hoping can bring everybody together and get everybody lined up and still make plays on his own. Well, if you go into week 1 and he's not starting, I'm a little concerned because again, last year, and I get that they're different players and I get that, you know, obviously guys develop at different paces, but last year Malcolm Rodriguez came out of training camp as the starter as a 6th round draft pick. He so much so that Kelvin Shepherd was saying that like, yo, like he's getting it faster and he's doing it better than any of these veteran guys. So if that's what a 6th round draft pick is able to do, you kind of have to look at Jack and kind of feel like, hey, like the bar is kind of high for you in the sense of like, hey, what you are going to have to earn. And the Lions have been pretty adamant about that throughout this regime is that nothing is given to anybody and everything is earned. So again, if Jack doesn't earn it, I'm gonna be a little concerned, right? I'm not gonna be sitting here screaming bust or that he was a waste of a pick, but I think it's gonna be a little concerning, as far as just like, hey, he's not quite where I thought he would be. Because I fully expect Jack and Alex to be starting, to be your starting linebackers week 1 against Kansas City. I feel like that just makes too much sense at this point. All right, so number 4 on my list are the running backs. I can't remember who said it. I think it was Big T. I think you were saying that, you know, you really want to see what the running backs do. And that's kind of like the 4th on my list, right? It's funny how like these position groups kind of pair up with each other. But again, this is a group that's again a lot of, you know, turnover at the top. No longer do you have Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. It is now the David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs show. And first starting with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's going to be important to see if he's practicing. Is he taking part in OTAs? Because coming out of rookie minicamp, they were saying that, you know, the injury that he sustained was pretty minor. They were just holding him out for precaution and things of that nature. Well, okay, it's been about a couple weeks. We're now starting, you know, OTAs. Is he able to go? And if he's not able to go, yeah, again, you kind of get into this world where it's like, well, that's a red flag to me because it's been a couple weeks. You said it wasn't anything serious, and he can't even get out there to do OTAs. And this is valuable reps that he's missing because, again, you took him high. You took him with the 12th overall pick, and there's going to be a lot of expectation. Not necessarily like I'm not going to say expectation to perform to a certain level, but it's like there's going to be an expectation to see him on the field. Like he has to be able to get out there and start getting these reps because if he's not, then obviously the production's not going to come. If he's not on the field taking handoffs, running routes, you know, understanding pass protection sets, and actually, like again, seeing it and being able to go through the motions, well, how well can we expect him to perform once the season actually kicks off? So Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously, is he practicing? Like that's a big one for me in the OTA reports is Jahmyr Gibbs actually getting on the field? The second one is again, what is the splits between, you know, him and Monty? We know how the splits were back when Jamal and DeAndre were here. Jamal got a lot of the early down work, and then Swift would come in, you know, on passing situations. Or again, sometimes he would work in on like earlier downs, but definitely like if it was 3rd down, DeAndre Swift was coming into the game both for pass protection and just to be able to run routes. Again, are they going to try to pencil Monty and, you know, Gibbs into those same roles? Or are we going to see more versatility out of these guys? Obviously, Monty has been heralded as a do-it-all back. Like again, he can run in between the tackles, but he's actually a very good receiver as well. So is that going to put more pressure on Jahmyr to kind of like bust onto the scene and be able to show that he can do that he can be dynamic in all aspects of the game? Or again, do they already have designated roles? So that's going to be really important to see. And just to be able to get an idea of what their usage is like and everything like that. Casey saying 2 tight end sets with Laporta, both running backs, Montgomery and Gibbs. Ben Johnson missed direction plays in red zone. How can you defend that? And I do. I think on paper, right, the Lions have this very diverse looking passing attack and weaponry that were again a lot more like wild cards, excuse me, on the field. You know, Monty can go out and he can go out and pass, or he can go out and catch a pass. Obviously, we know what Gibbs is as a receiving threat. Laporta can literally line up in line, in the slot, out wide. And then Brock Wright obviously showed himself last year as like, hey, he's not just your typical blocking tight end. Like he will go out and release and catch touchdowns on you if you don't account for him. Then you add in the fact that you still have Saint, you have Marvin Jones, who is a great red zone threat, has always been one, at least when he was here. Um, and so yeah, like the playbook definitely opens up more so in that situation with all the pieces that they have. And so, like I said, like that's where it kind of comes down to these running backs, and it's like, okay, well, how are they being used? Are we seeing any two back sets? That's something I've been calling for like the longest. Like the Lions will occasionally have like two, last year they had Jamal and Swift. And like I was dying to see like more two back sets with the both of them where you would really put some stress on the defense of like, okay, who's getting the ball and what are they doing out of this set? Because Swift can run routes and run. Yes, they're primarily using Jamal to run, but he could technically like slip out and catch a pass. Like, what are they doing? I would love to see more of that this year with Ben Johnson and this group of running backs that he has. Um, and then you kind of go back to like again, like what does that RB3 battle look like? Uh Obviously they re-signed Craig Reynolds, so there's a lot of faith and there's a lot of belief in Craig. But again, you have Mo Ibrahim out of Minnesota. Greg Bell was a UDFA last year that they really like. They still have or Jefferson kind of kicking around. So is he making any improvement or is he kind of just a practice squad guy at this point? There's a lot of juxing for position near the bottom of that running back group as well. So that's another one that's going to be kind of interesting to kind of see. Shout out to Mike Barker at Hotmail. I'm assuming that's like I'm assuming that you kind of like built your YouTube name off of your email. Well, shout out Mike. Appreciate you coming by saying finally caught a live. Appreciate you guys. I see that there's about 13 people watching. Make sure that you guys hit that like button. Again, it helps the channel out so much as I continue to kind of grow this thing and just make it a fun place for everybody. Lions fans and even people who probably aren't Lions fans, but just want to kind of get an idea of what the Lions are all about. Um, Hopefully I can do that for them as well. All right. So now my last position group that I'm going to be focused on, and I'm cheating here because I don't want to have to talk about these two separately. So I'm going to talk about them as my fifth one. And that's the D line and O line. Specifically just like the groupings. And again, trying to understand who's starting, who's kind of like again second team, who's rotating in, things of that nature. When we look at the defensive line, again, you obviously Hutch is starting, Aleem is starting. Last year around this time though, like it becomes the question of who is starting opposite of Hutch. James Houston had an amazing year last year, so does he get the nod right away? But then you also have Charles Harris and Romeo Okwara are both back. Do they again kind of take control of that opposite spot of Hutch? What does that mean for John Kaminsky? Josh Pascal is going to be healthy this year. There's a lot of like, again, that other defensive end spot is going to be very interesting to see who kind of comes out on top. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to, James Houston wowed a lot of people, right? And he gave fans a lot of faith in like why he should be the guy to get these starting reps. But at the same time, like again, some of these other guys just weren't healthy. They were coming off of injuries. And so now they're healthy. And I think now that defensive end spot becomes an open battle. When you look at the D line, specifically the interior D line, obviously Aleem is a mainstay. You signed Isaiah Buggs, so that gives you some sort of confidence that it's probably going to be Isaiah Buggs. But you also did draft Broderick Martin, and Levi's healthy for now, right? Like like I'm hoping that Levi stays healthy. I hate when guys are drafted this high and they don't get a chance to kind of show what they're capable of simply because their body won't allow them. Um that's unfair and I kind of like, sympathize for him or sympathize with him in that situation because obviously he would love to be out there. Obviously he would love to be showcasing his ability, but as of right now he's healthy. And I think it's going to be interesting to see again how much pressure and how much, you know, how much are they throwing Levi into the fire coming off of his back injury, off of the back surgery and everything like that. Um, and Big T's kind of there with me, right? Saying, yeah, the D line is a mystery because again, you have guys coming back from injury, guys who performed last year, and now it's just like, okay, who's starting and who's playing where and how many snaps is everybody getting? Because John Kaminsky was a force last year. He was a main reason that they were able to run a lot of their stunts and do a lot of things to help get Aiden free, get James Houston free, and just make that defensive line a little more unpredictable as well. And then, like I said, Josh Pascal was injured for a time being. He's finally healthy, and there was a lot of, again, you're talking about another second round draft pick, um, who again there's high expectations for. So again, where does he line up? Where does Julian Okwara line up? Um, there's so many edge rushers on this in this room, right? That they have where it's like somebody's got to be the odd man out. And I'm kind of like not looking forward to finding out who it is because I feel like whoever it is, we're all gonna kind of be like, ah, dang, wish we could have kept him somehow. Um, so that's kind of like my thought process as of right now. Casey saying Hutch and Houston both getting over 9.5 sacks each would be huge. And that's another thing. Like when we talk about this defense, needing to perform and being able to step up in order for this team to have a big year, I think it does start with Hutch, and it starts with whoever is opposite Hutch. Because again, we saw it in stretches last year. Aiden's absolutely able to go out there and get a sack or two, but he needs somebody opposite of him so that offenses don't feel like they can just slide protection towards him. Again, he had one of the higher double team rates, which those like that's a factual thing. I don't like using it as an excuse of why he didn't get more sacks, but like it's an actual thing, and you're able to do that when there's not anybody on the other side that you're really afraid of. James Houston continuing to develop, Romeo being able to show that he can return to form, or Charles Harris showing they can return to form, or again, Josh Pascal like showing why he was a second round draft pick and taking that spot for himself. Any of that would help take some pressure off of Aiden and help him become a more dynamic pass rusher. Um, Super Saiyan Lions joining the chat saying, "What up, Miko? What's good with you, man? Appreciate you having you in the chat again. Appreciate you all for hanging out. But yeah, those are kind of like what I was looking at from the defensive line set, and then when I look at the offensive line of things, there's two things that really kind of stand out. The first is who is starting at right guard because Vitae is finally back healthy, but you've also signed Graham, and Graham's back in Detroit, and obviously he has his eye on a starting spot as well. And then you also have Colby Sorsdal, who you drafted, and just again, how far away is he from competing for a starting spot? Can he kind of hang with these veterans, and hang with the starting offense? How many opportunities is he going to get to be able to even showcase that? Obviously, he's learning a new position, but again, he's being touted as a really smart guy, somebody who studies a lot. So it'll be interesting to see again what that right guard battle kind of looks like. And then the second thing with the offensive line is the news kind of broke last week that Frank Ragnow is still dealing with, this turf toe injury. And while I don't think it's not something I'm like freaking out about because they found ways of managing it last year, it is a red flag. It is something on the like when you start to consider like, okay, what the things that you need to go right during the season. Frank Ragnow being healthy is one of those things, and Frank Ragnow being available is one of those things because again, he's one of the best centers in the league, not just in the NFC, but like in the league. Um, and I think he kind of showed that last year. Obviously, he got the Pro Bowl nod because Jason Kelsey went to the Super Bowl, but Frank has done nothing but get better and better since he's been here. So to know that he's struggling with this injury, it's going to be kind of interesting to see again how they manage it because they need him for the season. So does that give more opportunities for Graham to play center and they just kind of pigeonhole Graham into the Evan Brown role where it's like, hey, you're mostly the backup center, but if you can beat out Vitae for guard, then like cool, you can start, but you're mostly here to back up Frank. It's going to be kind of interesting to kind of just see um, that dynamic and who's kind of getting that starting spot. Um, Mikael Watts Kendrick saying thoughts on defensive tackle Quentin Williams. So yeah, I actually talked about Quentin Williams in my last stream. Uh, I will keep it somewhat short because, like I said, I did talk about it as far as like what do I think it means for the Lions. If I'm the Lions and he is truly available, I feel like you go and you make the best offer you possibly can to get Quentin Williams. I believe having Quentin Williams is the type of defensive tackle that takes you from having again a possibly good defense, right? There's some question marks, like I just kind of laid out with the secondary, the linebackers, a lot of new pieces, so a lot of guys got to gel. But having a Quentin Williams in the middle of your defense next to Aleem with Hutch on the outside, and whoever you decide to put on the other side, whether it's James Houston, Romeo Quara, whoever, that defensive line becomes much better simply by having Quentin Williams. So I would trade whatever the Jets are asking for. I would trade a first. I would trade a first and a third. I would trade like you tell me the deal, and I would probably be okay with making it because I think the Lions have a window to get to the Super Bowl, and I think Quentin Williams helps you kick that window in, and makes the Super Bowl way more plausible, versus not having it. Um, Motor City Thanos saying, "Who gets the first sack on our D line?" Is it cheating to say Hutch? Because I feel like Hutch is going to get the most opportunities, right? Because outside of Hutch and Aleem, like those are the only two like for sure starters that are on the defensive line that I can say like they should, without a shadow of a doubt, be starting day one. Um, the other defensive end spot is a question mark for me, and then whoever's starting, I think Isaiah Buggs is likely starting a defensive tackle, and I don't think Isaiah Buggs had a sack last year, so I don't. I think it'd be kind of. I'm just going to take the odds on that one that it's probably not Isaiah Buggs. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my thought process on again the position groups that I'm most focused on going into OTAs. Um, but kind of pivoting from that when looking at okay, so those are the position groups. These there's obviously once we get into OTAs, there are guys that kind of need to stand out and need to kind of um again, like I was saying talking about earlier about with the linebackers, like you kind of need to make yourself known and kind of put people on alert that like, oh, this person isn't showing him signs of improvement or is actually going to make some noise once the season starts. So I have a couple of guys that I'm interested in knowing who you guys think, but who do you think needs to have a fast start in the OTAs? I have three guys on my list right now that I personally believe need to have a fast start to OTAs, but I'm super interested in again kind of knowing what you guys think. Um, and we can kind of go from here. Actually, I have more than I forgot I added to this list. Um, so I said I had three. I actually have one, two, three, four. I have five. I have five guys that I think need to have fast starts to OTAs. Um, and I'm gonna just start off the bat with Jack Campbell. Right, Jack Campbell. Again, for every reason that I said earlier when talking about linebackers, you're a first round pick. Linebackers typically aren't picked in the first round these days. Um, and so you kind of have to make your presence felt. Again, we saw what Malcolm did last year, so there's a bar that's kind of already set as far as what is possible. And so whether it's fair or not, there's going to be this expectation on my part that like, hey, Jack come in early and at least shows command, at least shows the ability to um again not make the same mistakes, be able to take command of the defense, to showcase his coverage ability because like I've said, even in his evaluation, he's great in zone coverage. And when you're playing 7-on-7, you're going to get a lot of that. You'll obviously get some man, but it's going to be really interesting to see how Jack kind of evolves and develops as they kind of go through OTAs because again, I think he needs to have a fast start so that he can A, gain the confidence of this defensive staff or this coaching staff in general, and B, so that way like if he gains that confidence, it makes it much more likely that he starts. Again, this coaching staff has never given anything to anybody. Everything is earned. And so if Jack wants to be the starting linebacker, if he wants to have the green dot, if he wants to be the man in charge, OTAs is where he has to make that impact. And I know it's going to be a little hard because it's OTA, so there's not contact. He can't hit anybody, but he can still play great in coverage. He can still play. He can show his ability to drop in zone. He can show his ability to be good in man coverage because obviously that wasn't something they saw a lot of in Iowa. But if he shows the ability to do it here in OTAs, then that gives the coaching staff a lot more confidence once the season rolls around and being able to roll him out week one. So Jack Campbell is my first person on the list. Second on the list is Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton was your most highly paid free agent, right? Getting the cornerback out of Pittsburgh, who has he's never been like a big name corner, but he's been consistent. He's been solid. You look at his pass breakups. You look at the amount of yards he's given up. Cam Sutton has been a solid corner. And so you made him a priority. He was one of your first signings as far as, outside the building signings. And so Cam Sutton is somebody who it seems like, because you've traded away Jeff Okuda, you decided not to sign Amani back. Cam Sutton has to prove that he's capable of being CB1. And that's someone where, again, it's OTAs, and while OTAs are very much tailored to the offense finding more success in the defense, I would still love to hear that Cam Sutton is challenging these guys, that he's challenging a Josh Reynolds, that he's challenging a Jamison Williams, that him and Marvin are having good battles, that him and Saint are having good battles, right? Um, he's supposed to be the savvy veteran to help lead this new secondary room. So that's someone that I kind of have a bullseye on, as far as like, okay, I want to hear good things about Cam Sutton coming out early, because I feel like between him and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, one of those two guys, in addition to Tracy Walker, because Tracy obviously was a captain last year, but one of those two guys also needs to be a very vocal leader for that group, and help hold that cornerback group accountable. Next on my list is another rookie and another defensive back, and it's Brian Branch. And again, it goes back to the idea that, like, I'm not sure if Tracy's going to be starting, and if he's going to be taking part in 11 on 11s, if he's going to be doing any of the team drills. And so if he's not, then I think this is an excellent opportunity for Brian Branch to take advantage of that opportunity. Showcase, show the team and show the coaches why they don't need to rush Tracy back. Show everybody the guy that went to Alabama as a freshman and started for Nick Saban. Because if you're able to show that you're able to pick up the defense, diagnose the defense, and make plays, you have a faster track of making it onto the field. And if it's not that, and if Tracy is taking those defensive snaps, obviously, working with the second team, make a splash on the second team. But in addition to that, I feel like Brian Branch is going to have to make plays on special teams. So again, showing that commitment to go out there and do the dirty work, and to go out there on special teams, be a gunner, cover kicks, whatever it might be, whatever you can do to showcase to this coaching staff that you deserve to be on the field. Last year we saw Kirby kind of, again, make like subtle waves in the offseason where he would make splash plays. Obviously, he wasn't super consistent, but he would make a play here and there. And that's all I'm really asking for from Brian Branch. Make a play here and there to kind of keep this coaching staff aware of, like, okay, he's developing, and he's where we want him to be. Next on the list, we have Jahmyr Gibbs. And again, these are all rookies because, like, a lot of these rookies were drafted high and they were highly touted. And Jahmyr Gibbs being drafted, the second running back in the draft, you want to hear good things. Like, you want to hear that Jahmyr Gibbs is cooking everybody. That includes Jack Campbell. Like, as much as I want Jack to make plays, I also want to hear that Jahmyr has cooked him a number of times. So at least I can feel like, okay, you got exactly what you were looking for going into the draft when you decided to pick him 12th overall. And from rumors, we're okay with taking possibly at 6 if you never got that trade from Arizona. So I want to hear that Jahmyr is, again, being utilized in a number of different ways. I want to hear that he's being, he's in the slot, that he's out wide, that, he's lined up in the backfield, that, he's doing just about everything and being this true weapon that Brad Holmes said that they saw him as. Don't get into OTAs. Don't start getting into these offseason workouts and just run him on Texas routes. He runs a great one and it's awesome, but don't just go out here and do that. Don't just put him on halfback option routes. Like, truly utilize him to his fullest capabilities, and let's see if he's able to make splash plays during the offseason. And this is my last one, and I'll see what you guys are saying in the chat so we can kind of compare notes on who we're all kind of expecting to have fast starts into OTAs. But the last one for me is insert your favorite UDFA. I believe it was Casey that said this early in the show, like, hey, he's kind of like rooting for these underdogs and things like that. So if you're rooting for an underdog, if you have a favorite UDFA, if you have, or maybe it's just a late round draft pick, maybe you're a real big fan of Antoine Green and you wanted to do well, those are the guys that have to make really big impressions during these OTAs. They have to really stand out. They have to show that commitment, that ability to be a dog, the ability to be gritty and to grind and to kind of take, to take what's available to them and try to take a guy's job. If these guys, I feel like making the Lions roster this year will be the most difficult it's been during Dan Campbell's tenure. Obviously, the first year they were just looking for guys. They were trying to find their culture fits. The second year got a little more difficult because you have 2 draft classes and you were able to sign, some slightly better free agents. This year you were able to sign some really good free agents, pick up some really good pieces in the draft. And so there's not as many like holes for like, oh, yeah, a UDFA can easily fill that spot. Um, if we're talking about UDFAs making the roster, again, we're talking about RB3, we're talking about CB4, wide receiver 5 or 6. Like it's further down the depth chart, but if you have a favorite, that's somebody who needs to kind of really stand out and have a big week at OTAs. All right, so let's jump back in the chat real quick. I want to see again, the question was like, who do you think needs to have a fast start um, to OTAs? Max X saying Aleem. Okay, I can see that. Aleem's been consistently developing for me. So again, him continuing to showcase that, he's that leader in the middle of that defensive tackle group would obviously be big. So yeah, I could see why you would say Aleem. Casey saying Sorsdal, Campbell, and Romeo. Again, we talked about Romeo earlier, right? Like Romeo coming back from this injury, he came back last year. He had a game where he had 2 sacks, but again, he's had a full offseason to get healthy. Um, can he be that starter opposite Hutch? And I think that's going to be something to really keep a focus on. Um, Motor City Thanos asking, what plays does Campbell make first, a sack or an interception? I'm going to say an interception, just because he's so much better in coverage. Um, Yeah, like, again, you look at him in zone coverage, he has great hands, he has great eyes, great athleticism to, again, just to be able to drop. So if I had to pick one, I would say that. And just because and not saying that they won't blitz him and it's for him to get a sack, but, like, he didn't do a ton of it at Iowa. It's gonna be a skill set he's gonna have to learn, um, but he's already a very natural coverage guy. Max Dag throwing in some more suggestions. He said Levi, Vitae, and JMO. Again, all guys that I think Levi and Vitae are obviously coming back from back injuries. So they have to be able to showcase that. Again, for Vitae's sake, is he still the starting right guard? For Levi's sake, can he carve out a role and find a way into the rotation with the other defensive tackles? And then JMO didn't have an OTA last year. Didn't get to participate physically in a lot of these workouts. So is he going to be able to again, maximize this time because he's going to be missing games, but can he build up a chemistry with Jared Goff? Can he learn the offense? Can he showcase all the skill sets that got him drafted as high as he got drafted? Let's see what else we got here. Tony Chase saying, thanks. That's facts. Miko Jack needs a fast start to show that he's alpha. Not necessarily a Hall of Famer, but you are a first round pick, my guy. Exactly. Right. Like, I'm not expecting him to go out there and, be Ray Lewis or Dick Buckus like from day one, but like showcase that you have command, show that it's not too big of a moment for you. You're a rookie, you're going to make mistakes. It's not a matter of if you make mistakes, it's a matter of when. And so I want to see Jack come in and make those mistakes, but at least be able to own them and be able to like kind of like what we heard coming out of rookie minicamp is that he would make a mistake, Kelvin Shepard would correct it, and he wouldn't make the same mistake again. Like show that because this is the time to do that type of stuff so that when it comes week 1, you're ready to go. You're hitting the field, absolutely understand where you're supposed to be and where the guys around you are supposed to be. Let's see. Anybody else that you guys are looking for? Whoops. Mike saying Gibbs is what Swift was not, a fast processor. I agree. I think again, Jahmyr Gibbs in my evaluation of him has much better vision than what Swift had and some of the other running backs that have been here. He has very good vision to be able to uh not just hit the hole, but again, be able to see the next level and to be able to take a short yard run to a longer run. I'm actually working on a video that I'll be dropping hopefully in the next couple weeks of comparing like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery to Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. I actually got that request from one of you guys on another video. So I appreciate honestly that video suggestion. So I'm gonna definitely try to get that out to you guys. Casey saying my favorite UDFA is one of these international guys. I know they picked up a guy from like Australia, right? That plays tight end. So I'm always kind of interested in just kind of see like again what that development process looks like. So I kind of hear you on that one. Um, Mike also saying Ibrahim is someone that he thinks needs to have a fast start. So again, your favorite UDFA needs to have a big start and needs to have a fast start and needs to be able to turn heads um, during these first couple weeks of OTAs. BD Buster in the chat saying, "What up, man? BD, it's good to see you, my brother." My other guy, Luke, shout out, pointing out the fact that yeah, we're almost at 200 subs. I think before I jumped on the stream, we were at like 194. So yeah, let's again, if you're new here, if you haven't subbed, like yo, would appreciate you guys helping me get to that 200 mark. But yeah, Luke, what's good with you? Good, always good seeing you in the chat, man. Um, Big T saying he thinks Deuce messed with Swift's game mentally. I think so. I think actually let me walk that back. I don't think he messed up Swift's game, but I think it's a lot of pressure to not just perform but also stay healthy. And when you're not being able to stay healthy, I think you start to press. And when you look back at a lot of DeAndre Swift's runs later in the season, or once he started coming back from injury, I feel like he was really trying to press, where he was trying to make every carry count because he knew he wasn't going to get as many of them as Jamal was getting. Um, you look at how he played in that Eagles game, and it was like effortless, right? He was making plays, making big runs, and it almost felt like hey, he wasn't really worried about anything. But then you kind of see, him coming back from injury, and like everything felt like it had to be a home run. He had to have a big run. He had to go out here and break tackles and do something spectacular. And if he wasn't doing that, I think mentally he was probably feeling like, yo, I'm not succeeding. Um, so I can kind of see where you're going with that. Yo, my guy Thomas, what is good? Thomas saying, Brandon Joseph, if this is the Thomas I think it is, me and Thomas used to work together at the Palace way back in the day. So shout out to you, my guy. It's good to see you, man. Um, Luke G saying, I heard Ibrahim was hurt when we added him. Is that true? Um, I don't think so because he took part in uh rookie minicamp when Gibbs wasn't able to do that. Um, from what my understanding was that Ibrahim was the one that was taking all the snaps. Um, and then again, yeah, shout out to you, Casey, saying thanks for the stream. Great Lions content and analysis. Best of success moving forward with this challenge. God bless you and your family. Go Lions. Yo, I appreciate it. And the same to you, Casey. Yo, God bless you and your family as well. And again, I always appreciate the support from everybody. Um Tony Chase saying Hard Knocks did it to Swift. Listen, like I said, it's a lot of pressure, right? Like I think Swift kind of knew what he was going into. I think the writing was kind of on the wall as far as, hey, you've struggled with injuries these last couple of years. You're in a contract year. And again, those guys try to go out there and they try to make their money any way they possibly can. So I don't necessarily blame him. I think Swift is going to do great things in Philly. I don't know about you guys. I'm not one of those fans that like when guys leave, I start to kind of like wish bad upon them or just harp on what they didn't do. Um, I very much appreciate what Swift was able to bring to the Lions while he was here. And much like, him or Levi or a bunch of other guys, like Deshaun Hand is another one that I can think of, where it's like, yo, their bodies just started to kind of fail on them and they weren't ever able to live up to, you know, one spectacular season they had, or they weren't able to stack on amazing moments. And so therefore their careers kind of went a different direction. But I mean, like I said, I appreciate Swift for what he did while he was here. And I do. I really do wish him the best as he kind of goes forward in Philly. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like my last couple streams, once we get like close to this hour mark, my voice starts to go. So I finally decided to prep and like get a water bottle so that like my voice doesn't start cracking. It's been tough the last couple weeks, but um I had two other topics that I was going to get into, right? But because I stream twice a week, we're already creeping up on an hour. Um, I don't think I'm gonna dive into them today. I'm gonna leave these for Wednesday because I have two other topics that like if I go into them, we're gonna be on here for 2 hours, and then I'm not gonna have a voice at all. So let me jump in the chat, see what you guys are saying, and then yeah, we'll probably close it out a little timely, right? Like this way, nobody has to miss dinner or miss spending time with their family. Um, Miles Carado. I apologize if I said that wrong. Says, bro, I hate the offseason. I just want to watch Lions already. Bro, I feel you. Like, this is the worst time of the year for me because we get like some amount of football and that like we know the team is getting better, but you don't get to see them on the field and you don't get to know if your expectations are being met um until week one. So it's this real weird limbo situation that you're in where it's like, yo, I really want to see, like, I'm hearing good things. I'm excited. The draft has already happened. I've read every article that I possibly could. I've watched every highlight reel, every hype video I possibly could. Um, and so, I definitely feel you. And I appreciate the pronoun so it's pronounced car radio. Okay, I got you. Listen, as somebody who has a difficult name as well, there's a reason why there's a reason I just go by Miko because people mess up D'Amico all the time, so I just go with Miko. It's easy, one syllable, you can't butcher it. Um, Motor City Thanos, man, you got some really good questions, bro. I really do appreciate these. By season's end, who will be the best rookie on offense and on defense? And you can't say Gibbs or Campbell. If that's the case, if I can't say that's fine because I think Sam Laporta has a very good chance of being the best rookie on this offense. You look at what he's able to do again, just from like lining up. You look at the production they got out of their tight end group last year, and that was a group that, like, I think a lot of people would say overachieved, right? Brock Wright, and those guys kind of just overachieved a little bit. Shane Zylstra and whatnot. So I think you get someone like Sam who's really going to be your do it all tight end, at least in the receiving game. I think he has the potential to be your best offensive rookie. Defense, if I can't say Campbell, and I'm only saying this person because I think he gets on the field more. I'm gonna say Broderick Martin. And that's because I think Broderick Martin is going to be the surprise of this draft in the same way that I think like Kirby was kind of the surprise of last year's draft, where you know Kirby was known as a ball hawking safety, but like they also was like, yo, he still needed to develop. There was all this talk about like Kirby needs to get better. He's gonna have to develop. He's not going to be ready to go right out of the box. He's going to take a couple years. Well, then he went out there and like, yeah, he had a couple of rough games in the beginning, but then he went out there and outplayed my boy Luke's guy, Kyle Hamilton, for the rest of the season. I gotta throw that dig in there to Luke because I know he was such a big Kyle Hamilton guy, and I was too. I liked what Kyle Hamilton could be. I just didn't like the fact that people were talking about taking him, top five. Like that ludicrous. But yeah, like Kirby went out there and outplayed expectations. So I think Broderick has the same capability where he's going to get run as like again that rotational defensive tackle, and it may not be like statistically, but I think he could be like a really strong force in the middle as far as stopping the run. Which is obviously like again that's a focus of this defense, being able to stop the run so that you can get your pass rushers on there on third down and allow your secondary to make plays and get turnovers. Um, Tony Chase saying tough deal. All the guys from Patricia and get a fair shot. Weird time. Um, I don't know. I feel like most of the guys from the Patricia era got a fair deal for the most part. I mean, Tavai, like that, just like that didn't make sense to jump. But I think again, that's what happens when you draft guys to just kind of fit a system. But I think you're seeing a lot of these guys kind of just like get phased out. I think Amani is probably the most disappointing one for me. Amani and Swift are probably the two most disappointing because Amani had that great second year, playing corner, having 6 picks, and then like just disappeared. He pulled a Kenny Galladay almost, like except he didn't get paid. Like he just disappeared though. Like one great season, came back the next year and was like unplayable. And I still don't understand how that happened. I still don't get what really happened in that situation. Um, and then Swift, like we talked about, like it's just you look at what Swift was supposed to be, and you look at what he did in college. Like you can pull up his college tape now, and even still pull up some of his Lions like highlights. And it's like, dude, if that guy could have been available for 14 games, like this would have been amazing. Um, so it's really kind of tough that he kind of went, had that type of year. Big T saying Kirby the truth. I think that's whose jersey I'm going to purchase. So uh, my good friend Scotty gifted me a Tracy Walker jersey last year. I need to get a new one because apparently I washed it wrong and like the numbers on the back are peeling. So I need a new Tracy Walker jersey. I am waiting to make sure that Brian Branch is staying at 32 before I buy a Brian Branch jersey because that's probably the next jersey, the first jersey that I'll probably get. Um, and then depending on like I'll see how Jahmyr Gibbs turns out, and I'll probably get a Gibbs jersey as well. Um, Thomas saying, do you think the Lions will use Branch, Kirby, and Brandon as the safeties at the end of the season, as both Josephs are ball hawks? I don't know. I think they really like what Tracy brings to the table. I think Tracy gets very undervalued because he's not like a ball hawking safety, but he's like your jack of all trades type of safety where like he can play in coverage, he can play man, and you can send him on blitzes. Like so this is where like again, like if Tracy's healthy, it becomes really hard to figure out where Brian Branch fits into the rotation because ideally you would either want to play him at safety or nickel. And as long as Chauncey Gardner Johnson's here, nickel's going to be locked down at least for this year, and as long as he's healthy. So I don't see him getting any snaps at nickel. Um, then you look at safety. Like I said, I think Tracy plays that position very well. I think what you could potentially see where Branch, Kirby, Walker, and CJ GJ are on the field together is a situation where they take off a linebacker, like they take off Anzalone, but they keep Campbell, and they play like Tracy or Brian Branch at that other like linebacker spot just for like again to play man coverage or something like that. If there's a tight end matchup that they want to still be able to have, but not take off all their DBs off the field. That's a situation where I think you could probably get like three safeties on the field. Um, Yo, shout out again to you, Motor City. Thanos saying appreciate you answering my questions. Love the channel. We'll continue to tune in and support. Keep up the good work. Again, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, bring all the questions you got, man. Because like again, this is fun for me being able to engage with you guys like this. So any questions you guys have, I will try to fit them into the show. If not for this show, I'll at least try to write them down and I'll try to answer them in the next stream for sure. Um, DJ asking, do you value PFF? To an extent. Um, I think PFF can be great for context to provide like it can be used to provide value, absolutely. I do not swear by it, right? I don't think it's the end all be all, because I think what you see with your eyes also tells a story. So I think if you see something and you want to find a way to put some numbers behind what you're seeing, I think PFF is great for that. And if you see something like numbers wise that like seems odd, using that to go back to tape and say, okay, does this show up on tape? Um, I think in truth, that's how PFF should be utilized. Um, but I'm also like, kind of biased. I think numbers absolutely matter. Like I'm a data analyst by trade, right? So I definitely believe in numbers, but I think like numbers should be used to help tell a story, not be used just as like the end all be all. If that makes any kind of sense. And then Miles saying only thing I liked about Bob Quinn is that he drafted Ragnow, Decker, and Jonah Jackson. Yeah, Bob Quinn killed it for offensive line drafts. Like that's he was a great evaluator of offensive linemen. I think that's like something that we can all kind of agree on. Everything else, I don't know if he just wasn't great evaluating at it. I don't know if he just like caved under the pressure of Matt Patricia. I don't know what it is, but at least we can all be grateful for the fact that we have Brad Holmes, a guy that not only evaluates talent really well, like we talked about last week, right? Being able to know that Jack would go in the first round and basically saying to hell with what other people think. I'm going to take this guy in the first round, even though I know it's not going to be popular. Like, and then again, so far in at least two drafts, he's found late round gems. He found an Amon-Ra St. Brown in the fourth round. He's found a Kirby Joseph in the third round. He's found a Malcolm Rodriguez, who again might not be starting this year, but is still great depth. It's still a valuable piece to have in your linebacker room. So there's a lot of things to like about what Brad's been doing lately. Um, and then DJ saying to me, that's my main issue with PFF. It's all analytics over there. They don't watch football. I swear they don't. They just take stats with no context. Listen, I'll say this. This is the last thing I'll say about PFF. It was during the draft, and this was like the most egregious thing I'd ever seen happen on PFF. They were doing a live stream where they were doing like their mock drafts, and they were talking about Bryce Young being able to throw across the middle despite being like of short stature. And they're like, yo, he does it really well. And so they were like, oh yeah, pull up the numbers. So like one of the guys is pulling up the stats on Bryce Young being able to throw across the middle. Pull up the stats. They're like, yeah, he throws it at this percentage. It was like 65%, 67%, something like that. And so then they were like, "Oh, I bet it's way better than CJ Stroud." So the guy was like, "Oh, I'll compare them." CJ Stroud had like a 65, 66, and they were like, "Well, what parameters are you using for short yardage?" Like, wait a minute. These numbers were great when we were just looking at Bryce Young, but now when we compare him to somebody else, now these numbers aren't good enough. So like that's where I get kind of iffy with analytics. Like you can make analytics tell whatever story you want to. Um, but like I said, they are a useful tool that I think like that has a place in the football community. Um, I just don't think it's probably as high on the pedestal as they probably believe they are. And I say that with all due respect because obviously they're a very well-renowned platform, and so I don't mean that to shade them at all. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much gonna do it. I did not expect the OTAs talk to take up as much time. Like I said, I had two other topics that I was gonna get into, but I will get into those on Wednesday. So if you guys are new around here, I see there's 18 people watching. Again, before you guys bounce, if you guys could hit that like button for me, I really would greatly appreciate it. Um, Hit the notification bell because that way you'll know when I do go live on Wednesday. I go live every Monday and every Wednesday. And depending on like news or something happens, I may go live on a Friday as well. But yeah, if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified of every time I go live. You'll be notified of every time I upload a video because I do upload videos as well. If you're not able to watch the whole stream, I upload clips from the stream. I make other videos for you guys. I'm about to jump into the whole reels, shorts thing. My wife is gonna help me with that one. So, but I appreciate you guys for again. We're super close to 200. I don't know if we cross 200. I'm not like looking at YouTube as of right now, but whether we cross it today, tomorrow, in the future, I appreciate you guys. You guys have made this so much fun. So again, shout out to everybody that took out time out of their day, out of their evening to hang out with me. Talk Lions. I appreciate you guys. And like I said, man, I will catch you guys on Wednesday. Later.